In the middle of a heavy rain, two police officers drove to a crime scene. When they arrived, they discovered that the victim was a woman. According to the report, the daughter was missing and the husband was on a business trip to Japan. Due to the weather, the husband would not return until tomorrow. There were many stab wounds on the victim's body. The cause of death was excessive blood loss. No trace of a murder weapon was found at the scene. From the shape of the wound, it could be seen that it was a very sharp weapon. Police officer Kang In speculated that this was a case of revenge because the murder was so cruel. Through investigation, the police discovered something strange. On the evening of the crime, an anonymous person called the police to report that there was a strange noise in the house. Kang In always had the feeling that the person who reported the crime was his missing daughter, Kyung Jin. Because the scene had no trace of an outside intrusion, it was very likely that Kyung Jin killed her mother first and called the police. Kyung Jin then fled the scene. The night before the incident, Kyung Jin went to the police station to report. She said that there seemed to be a woman in her bathroom. Because she felt so scared, she ran here to ask for help from the police. However, after listening, the police did not care about what she said. They just told her to fill out the information form first. Seeing that, Kyung Jin was extremely disappointed and left. When she just got to the door, she suddenly heard the sound of running water in the bathroom. Kyung Jin quickly ran to the kitchen to get a knife. Suddenly, her mother's voice rang out. It turned out that her mother was preparing to take a bath and was pouring water into the tub. However, Kyung Jin still could not rest assured. So Kyung Jin took the knife and went to the bathroom. Kyung Jin fearfully walked in and pulled the curtain open. When Kyung Jin was about to turn on the faucet, a woman suddenly appeared. She raised her hand and pulled Kyung Jin into the bathtub. When the mother heard the noise, she immediately went out to check and saw that the bathroom door was locked. There were whispers of unknown content from inside. At this time, the phone rang, and the mother immediately turned her head to look. The bathroom door suddenly opened. The mother was immediately pulled inside. Then the door closed. A miserable scream echoed throughout the house. The police came to the school to find out information about Kyung Jin. Her academic performance was very good. She always wanted to take the exam to enter the Genius Training Center. The Genius Training Center only recruited two types of people. One was extremely rich, the other was extremely intelligent. Kyung Jin had neither of these. She only had a strong desire to enter that center. Junghyun ran a restaurant. Many years ago, she and her mother did something that caused some people in the church to lose their children. Now the church has accepted them back. That day, the insurance agent suddenly came to find Junghyun. He informed him that Junghyun's high school classmate Jun-so had ended his own life not long before. However, Jun-so failed to do so and is now in the hospital. Before the incident, Jun-so contacted some of her classmates. Jun-so told them the same thing. When Jun-so mentioned Junghyun, she said, "The Guzu family is back, and now Guzu's daughter will replace Guzu." Junghyun didn't understand what this meant. She had a niece who went to the same school as Kyung Jin. Her niece's name was Chae-jung. Chae-jung was one of the 4 members of the broadcasting club in the school. After Kyung Jin's incident, they received a cassette tape. Inside the tape were the words of the director of the Genius Training Center. The person in the tape seemed to be giving a lecture. His tone was very normal, but his voice was frightening. At this time, Kyung Jin's father had returned to the country. He immediately went to the police station to cooperate with the investigation. Kyung Jin's father took out a cassette tape from his bag. Because he often went on business trips, Kyung Jin often made cassette tapes for his father. Inside were recorded songs of his choice. This was for Kyung Jin's father to listen to on the go. Usually, Kyung Jin would record a commentary before each song. She recounted recent events. However, the content of this cassette tape was very strange. Kyung Jin revealed a secret. This secret was related to Junghyun's niece. The niece's father was Chae-ho. He was the one who released poison gas at the train station in 1987. At the same time, Chae-jung suddenly told Junghyun that she had something very important to say, but Junghyun said that she had to wait another day because Chae-jung was not ready yet. According to Kang In's memory, in 1987, Chae-ho released 4 suitcases of poison gas at the train station. This action caused more than 200 people to be injured. This incident was classified as a dangerous attack because it was extremely brutal. According to the testimony of eyewitnesses, as soon as the poison gas spread, someone wearing a gas mask left immediately. Because there were no surveillance cameras at the time, the police could not identify the suspect. If Chae-ho had not confessed, the police probably would not have been able to convict him. Chae-ho was a Japanese student. Chae-ho had only been back in Japan for 2 months, but he had already committed such a terrible act. Moreover, Chae-ho had done it right in his own country. Kang In's wife also died in that incident. On this side, Chae-jung was about to tell Junghyun her secret. Unexpectedly, Junghyun only left left a note for her niece. She informed her that she had to go meet someone. Jung-hyun would talk to Chae-jung after school. The person Jung-hyun wanted to see was Jun-seo. Jun-seo's whole body was bandaged, and his injuries were also very serious. Here, Jung-hyun met his old classmate, Min-ra. According to what Min-ra said, a few years ago, Jun-seo had found a marriage partner. Unexpectedly, before the marriage was even discussed, Jun-seo's fiancée died in a traffic accident. After that, Jun-seo went abroad. Jun-seo had just returned not long before he did something stupid. Before Jun-seo had an accident, Min-ra received a phone call from him. Jung-seo was looking for the school magazine before. Coincidentally, Min-ra still had some, but before she could give it to her, Jun-seo had an accident. What Min-ra heard was the magazine, and what Jung-hyun heard was guzu. Why was the content of what Jun-seo said to them so different? Moreover, the word guzu was even more confusing than the magazine. At this time, Jun-seo suddenly had a seizure. He stopped breathing soon after. At the same time, the broadcasting club also received news that Kyung-jin's mother had an accident. While Kyung-jin was missing, Chae-jung became uneasy when she heard this. She made an excuse to go to the bathroom and then quietly left. At the hospital, the doctor told Jung-hyun that when Jun-seo regained consciousness, he had mentioned her. Jun-seo also asked what day it was. Then Jun-seo kept repeating that Jung-hyun could not stay here any longer. Otherwise, Chae-jung would be in danger. Chae-jung was Jung-hyun's niece. On this side, Han-kyu, the restaurant staff, came to pick up Chae-jung. Chae-jung seemed to have realized something, so she asked Han-kyu if Jung-hyun and her grandmother had anything happened. Han-kyu told Chae-jung to get in the car first and then talk more. After Chae-jung's school ended, Jung-hyun came to pick up his niece. Jung-hyun heard from Chae-jung's classmates that after lunch, Chae-jung didn't come to class anymore. It seemed like she had left on a motorbike with someone. After, Kyung-jin went missing for 3 days. Chae-jung also went missing, and all of this was related to Chae-ho, who was very difficult to deal with. This person's words were half true and half false. This made it impossible for the police to investigate anything. Time returned to August 13, 1987, when 5 students came to an abandoned school. This school was classified as a restricted area. A gloomy atmosphere enveloped the entire place, especially in one of the classrooms inside. A few lines of text suddenly appeared on the blackboard, which the group of students had not seen last week. There was also a painting on the wall. The scene in the painting was very strange. On the way home, Jung-hyun kept thinking about the words on the blackboard. 31906. I still haven't forgotten. After Jung-hyun returned home, a strange thing happened. Jung-hyun's mother carried a child on her back and said that the child was brought back by Jung-hyun's brother. That brother was Chae-ho. The child brought back by Chae-ho was Chae-jung. Time returned to the year 1999. At this time, Chae-jung had been missing for 1 day. The police conducted a large-scale search, but they only found Chae-jung's phone. Only a few days had passed, and 2 people had gone missing. The police suspected that these 2 incidents might be related. Meanwhile, the school side is also in chaos. Chae-jung was one of the 4 members of the radio group. The other 3 students were called in for questioning. The last time they saw Chae-jung was at lunch. Before Chae-jung went missing, something strange happened. An anonymous person sent the radio group a cassette tape. Inside was a lecture by the director of the Genius Training Center. Kang-in wanted to listen to the tape, but the tape disappeared without a trace. Kang-in went to the security room to find out what was going on. On the registration form, there was a line of text that had been erased and changed to a student's name. It was edited by the security guard himself. Originally, the name Kyung-jin was written on it. According to the security guard's memory, Kyung-jin's state was very strange that day. In the past, she always greeted everyone enthusiastically, but that day, Kyung-jin didn't say a word. When she left, she even asked the security guard if she would put her name on the registration list. If so, crossed her out because Kyung-jin didn't want others to know where she was. She also said that her father didn't go on a business trip to Japan, but in fact, he went to see his lover. Kyung-jin believed that as long as she did well on the exam, her father would often return. These were all things her mother told Kyung-jin, and she was sick of hearing them. Kyung-jin also mentioned that woman. Kyung-jin said that she was right there in the gym. Kyung-jin insisted that everything was done by that woman. Those things had absolutely nothing to do with Kyung-jin. However, the security guard assured that there was no one in the gym. Kang-in sorted through the clues again. If the security guard wasn't lying, then Kyung-jin was at the scene when the crime happened. Therefore, she wasn't the culprit, but an accomplice. But Soo-chung felt that this was impossible. No matter what, the victim was Kyung-jin's mother. How could a child kill his mother? Kang-in explained that there was no trace of a third person at the scene. Kang-in eliminated all the impossible possibilities. So, no matter how unbelievable the remaining possibility was, it was the truth. People are not as kind as imagined. Kyung-jin went to school to send the cassette tape. The content of the tape was related to the Genius Training Center, so the police had to go find the director of that center. On this side, Jung-hyun went to find Han Kyu. Han Kyu was the one who went to school to pick up Chae-jung. There was no one in Han Kyu's house. Jung-hyun remembered that he often left the key under the flower pot. When Jung-hyun entered, she felt like this place had been deserted for a long time. The food in the refrigerator was already smelling. When Jung-hyun opened the other door, the strong smell of fresh blood immediately hit her nose. There were blood stains and feathers on the floor, but the window was completely intact. In the corner of the room were incense, burners and many candles. Jung-hyun opened the window, but she accidentally cut her hand. Fresh blood dripped from her hand. Jung-hyun raised her head to look at the window, on which there was a strange drawing. It seemed like Jung-hyun had seen it somewhere before. At the same time, the center director did not come to the office to meet Kang-in as scheduled, but instead ran to get the car. It seemed like he was planning to escape. Soo-chung quickly chased after him, but Director Lee drove his car straight into the office. Immediately after, he was taken to the police station. Director Lee was like a person who had been starved for many days. He ate 7 hamburgers in a row. Director Lee seemed very nervous. He explained that the car reversing just now was his fault. It was because Director Lee was so scared that he acted like that. Director Lee was afraid that the police would frame him for Kyung-jin's matter. If Director Lee was innocent, why would he be afraid? According to what Kang-in found out, Director Lee had been running the Genius Training Center for 14 years. 90% of the center's students were accepted into prestigious schools. However, this matter had nothing to do with the quality of education at the center, but rather with the cassette tapes that Director Lee sold. Director Lee could not hide his panic when he heard this. He immediately made a fuss and wanted to leave. Director Lee said that he had heard that a student had ended his own life, so he came here to assist in the investigation. But the police asked about the cassette tape. Kang-in immediately caught on to the loophole. The police had never said that Kyung-jin had ended his own life, and the newspaper had not written about it either. How did Director Lee know about this news? On this side, Jung-hyun went to the church to find the pastor. Han Kyu often came to the church, so Jung-hyun came here to ask him a little about him. When talking about Han Kyu, it was impossible not to mention the 1987 gas leak incident. Ever since that incident, the church has held a memorial service for the deceased every year. Last year, while the pastor was giving a speech on the podium, Han Kyu suddenly lost control. He screamed that everything was fake, and then he called everyone a liar. After that, Han Kyu stabbed himself in the arm. That day, the pastor didn't say anything special. The memorial speech was the same every year. Actually, the gas leak incident had a big impact on Jung-hyun because the gas was released by her brother. A while later, Jung-hyun returned to the store. Chae-jung and Se-ran's friends had been waiting there for more than an hour. It seems that the little girl has something very important to say. Se-ran knows that Chae-jung's father is Chae-ho, and she also knows that the two of them have always kept in touch. Jung-hyun tries to calm down and says that Chae-ho is in prison now. Therefore, he and Chae-jung cannot contact each other. Se-ran reveals another secret. Jung-hyun's high school friend is helping the two of them send letters. Jung-hyun can't believe this is true. It turns out that Chae-jung's disappearance is related to her father. Chae-ho is Jung-hyun's older brother, and he is also the most dangerous and evil element in history. Chae-ho massacred more than 200 people in his own hometown. His purpose was only to conduct an experiment. That experiment was very difficult, and it took a long time to carry out. That experiment was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Based on the clues Se-ran provided, the person who helped exchange letters was probably Jun-seo. But Jun-seo is now dead. Jung-hyun has no choice but to find Min-ra to ask about the situation. That year, Min-ra was also in the team that went to the abandoned school. Not long after Jung-hyun returned from that school, her brother went to the train station to release the poison gas. The two of them left their hometown, one after another. They had only returned a year ago, but after they returned, a strange murder case occurred. Then came a missing person case. It seemed that everything was related to them. It seemed that Jung-hyun should not have returned here. Kang-in was also a victim of that poison gas release. At that time, Kang-in was arguing with his wife to the point of temporary separation. Kang-in's wife had just returned to live with her husband for about a month. That night, Kang-in went out drinking alone and came home late at night. When Kang-in returned, he didn't see his wife, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Kang crawled into bed and went to sleep. It wasn't until about 10 o'clock the next day that the phone rang. Human intuition is sometimes very accurate. That day, Kang-in didn't intend to answer the phone. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up. The other end of the line informed him that Kang-in's wife had been killed in a terrorist attack. From then on, every day when the phone rang, Kang-in always felt uneasy. The ringing sound every morning seemed to bring him back to that year. Kang-in always had a bad feeling that the matter to be handled this time would be much more difficult. A while later, Kang In and his teammates arrived at the crime scene. Kang In gave the tape to Su Chung. He told Su Chung to listen to it while he went inside the crime scene first. At the same time, Jung Hyun was awakened. Last night she had slept at Min Ra's place. Min Ra was reviewing that year's magazine, which contained photos taken by Jun So. The magazine also had a popular game that year called Secret Area Search. On this side, Su Chung listened to the tape recording while walking towards the crime scene. The content of the tape taught by director Lee had a very good mental stimulation effect. However, there was an extremely strange part in it. From the crime scene, a man's scream rang out. It was Kyung Jin's father's voice. This proved that the victim was Kyung Jin. At the same time, Jung Hyun saw a photo of the strange classroom in 1987. She saw the words on the blackboard and the painting hanging on the wall. The drawing on the painting was identical to the drawing on Han Kyu's glass. When she saw this, Jung Hyun was suddenly stunned. The forgotten memories slowly appeared in her mind. August 13, 1987 was the starting point of the whole incident. At that time, there were 5 students exploring the abandoned school together. The group consisted of 2 boys and 3 girls. A male student took a photo of Jun So pretending to be dead. Jung Hyun and Min Ra were 2 of the 3 female students. There was also a male student and a female student who had not appeared. If the woman that Kyung Jin had mentioned was one of them, then that person had likely died in 1987. Jung Hyun had forgotten about 1987. The human brain has a self-protection mechanism. It will automatically hide some painful memories. Jung Hyun remembered that her brother released poison gas in 1987, but Jung Hyun did not remember that she and her friends had ever been to this strange classroom. This proved that between the time Jung Hyun returned from the classroom and the time her brother released poison gas, something had happened that had a great impact on Jung Hyun. That incident was most likely the death of that woman, and it was also likely related to the remaining male student, because Jung Hyun and that male student had a love relationship. The magazine mentioned 7 secret locations, and Jung Hyun's group found 2 locations. These 2 places might have important clues. Chae-ho mentioned an experiment. Moreover, that experiment needed to be carried out for a long time. I wonder what kind of experiment it was that made Chae-ho kill more than 200 people? Maybe this is Chae-ho's true nature. On September 30, 1987, the magazine's editorial board received many letters. Among them, there was a letter containing a videotape. The content inside the tape was very strange. It affected 5 people at different levels. Time moved to 1999. Kyung Jin, who had been missing for many days, was discovered to have been murdered. Chaejun's whereabouts are still unknown. The media revealed all the information about the girl's background. They made it public that she was Chae-ho's daughter. Jun So was one of the members of the editorial board at that time, but not long before, Jun So ended her life in front of her house. Jung Hyun and Min Ra were also members of the editorial board. But now, there is only one man and one woman left who have not been revealed. Jun So's cousin came to find Jung Hyun and Min Ra. The 2 were taken to Jun So's residence when he was alive. They were asked to help select photos to use in the memorial service. During the search, the 2 accidentally discovered that Jun So still kept photos from that year. Among them was a strange videotape. Meanwhile, director Lee was preparing to escape. He received a phone call from the church. His tone clearly showed respect for the person on the other end of the line. Director Lee carried a lot of candy with him. Whenever he was hungry, he would eat candy. When director Lee went to the toilet, a man wearing glasses came to find him. This person wanted to give him a gift before parting, but this gift was death. After director Lee was murdered, 2 subordinates did something strange. When Jung Hyun returned home, she found her mother praying. The mother saw her daughter return and immediately went to sleep. Jung Hyun closed the door to avoid disturbing her. Then, Jung Hyun found the player to watch the strange videotape. It started with a very loud noise, followed by a red circle. But before Jung Hyun could continue watching, the glass door was broken by someone. Jung Hyun's mother was also awakened by the noise. Before the mother and daughter could understand what was happening, countless stones continuously flew towards them. This is how people welcome relatives of terrorists. When Chae-ho was interviewed, he said that his childhood was very peaceful. His mother raised him and his younger sister alone. After that, Chae-ho went to Japan to meet his daughter. That daughter was Chae-jung. Chae-ho did not mention much about Chae-jung's mother's identity. He only said that she was not Japanese. So why was Chae-jung in Japan? The police quickly received news that director Lee had been murdered. His wife and children had gone to Tokyo. Perhaps director Lee was also planning to go there. There were many sweets at the scene. Kang In had seen this kind of candy at Kyung Jin's house. house. Both Kyung Jin and director Lee had this kind of candy, and both of them were tragically murdered. This proved that there was a problem with this candy. It needed to be sent for testing. The police discovered that this candy originated from Japan. It was the most imported candy in the 1990s. This candy has the ability to cause extremely strong hallucinations. At that time, the only person who could circulate such a large quantity of goods could only be the Skull Gang. Therefore, the deaths of Kyung Jin and director Lee were definitely related to this gang. Maybe Chae Jung was also in their hands. At the same time, another person who had watched the videotape that year appeared. That person's name was Jung Ta. Currently, he was working as a loan shark. Min Ra came to find Jung Ta. She took him to meet Jung Hyun. Jung Ta was the person who had held Jung Hyun's hand that year. The two were originally in a relationship, but Jung Hyun suddenly left. This made Jung Ta very upset. He didn't know what he had done wrong. Jung Ta and Jung Hyun watched the videotape together. After the circle disappeared, a woman appeared. Her arms were crossed, covering her face. The surrounding sound was also very strange. It was like something was whispering. Jung Hyun's group had watched the tape in 1987. However, Jung Ta did not remember this incident at all, and Jung Hyun did not have any impression. Meanwhile, Se-ron was still hiding something. The cassette tape they received was in her hands. However, Se-ron did not intentionally hide it, but because she had her own troubles, the day before Chae-jung went missing, she went to see Se-ron. Chae-jung told her to keep the tape well. Se-ron absolutely could not tell anyone about this. Se-ron wanted to keep this promise, but Chae-jung had been missing for several days, so Se-ron could no longer hide it. If the cassette tape was a clue to finding Chae-jung, then Se-ron could no longer hide it. At that time, Kang-in came to Jung Hyun to ask about Chae-jung. Kang-in wanted to know the girl's background. It turned out that Jung Hyun and her brother grew up in a welfare home. They were then adopted by their current mother. Their father passed away in 1985, but this information did not match Chae-ho's testimony. If neither Chae-ho nor Jung Hyun were lying, then what Chae-ho said was likely about her biological mother. Not long after, Kang-in and Soo-chung received a new mission, which was to raid the stronghold of the Skull Gang. This gang specialized in drug trafficking, so they were willing to risk their lives. This mission for the two police officers was extremely dangerous. Soo-chung understood that, so he was very nervous. The identity of Soo-chung's wife was not simple. She was the last person in the group of 5. Except for Jun Seo, who died, the others had no impression of the tape at all. However, Soo-chung's wife, Soo-joon, had a very deep impression. She could even clearly recount the content inside. The strange ringing sound and the ghostly whispering. The woman in the tape covered her face with her hands. Soo-joon remembered all of these things very clearly. That year, after Soo-joon finished watching the tape, she fell seriously ill. She couldn't go to school for a whole week. However, Jung Hyun had no impression of this at all. During the week that Soo-joon was sick, she had a strange dream every day. In an upside-down room, a strange woman who looked exactly like the one in the tape appeared. She also covered her face with her arms. Jung Hyun once visited Soo-joon and said that Jung Ta also had this strange dream, but Jung Hyun didn't remember it at all. Just a few days later, the terrorist attack took place. For that reason, Jung Hyun was forced to leave her hometown. The editorial board also disbanded. Everyone became strangers as if they had never known each other. There was a similar story in Kang-in's memory. He remembered a girl who had just entered middle school and poured pesticide into her rice wine. She wanted to kill her own father. The girl even used a camera to record her father's death. When Kang-in asked why she did that, she replied that she was afraid she would forget. She was afraid she would forget how much she hated her father. She was afraid that if time passed, she would choose to forgive her father. In the end, was the father too evil, or was the girl too crazy? Time returned to 1999. Kang-in and Soo-chung were on a mission to raid a criminal's lair. Their main target was the Skull Gang's lair. Their firepower was very strong. The police raid team suffered many casualties. There were also strange symbols in this place. There were also some tools used to make poison in this place. There were some people locked up, including a strange man. The man held the gun in his right hand and pointed in one direction with his left hand. He asked Kang-in if he saw the girl over there. Of course, Kang-in didn't see it. The man said something very strange. So what Guzu was talking about was this. Then, the man ended his own life. He had a key on him. Kang-in told Soo-chung to go save the captives, while he continued to move forward to look for clues. Kang-in discovered a dead woman with a cassette player next to her. Kang-in turned off the radio. At this time, Soo-chung was unlocking the door. The people inside lined up as if they were waiting for rescue. The door was unlocked in a flash, and immediately after that, a huge explosion occurred. Soo-chung was the first to be directly affected by the explosion. At the same time, after discussion, Se-ron decided to hand over the cassette tape tape to Kang In. Kang In was not at the police station at the time, therefore, Se-ron had no choice but to ask someone else to hand over the tape to Kang In. On this side, Kang In went to the hospital to visit Soo Chung. Soo Chung was lucky to keep his life, but he lost a leg. This matter greatly affected Kang In. Kang In decided to withdraw from Chae-jung's case. Regardless of Chae-jung or Jung Hyun, they were both relatives of Chae-ho. Moreover, Kang In's wife had also passed away in the gas discharge incident that year. Kang In was not a saint, although Kang In knew clearly that the gas discharge incident had nothing to do with Chae-jung and Jung Hyun. Kang In could not help but hate them. As soon as Kang In thought that the person he was looking for was Chae-ho's daughter, he would feel uncomfortable. Therefore, taking the initiative to withdraw from the case was the best choice for Kang In. There would be someone better to take over Chae-jung's case, and this was the best way for everyone. Jung Hyun didn't know what to say either. She could only keep apologizing. On this side, Se-ron made an extremely important discovery. Chae-jung had logged into the chat software. Se-ron asked her where she was, and she replied that the answer was in the 1987 San notebook. The transfer date was September 8, 1999. Chae-jung's disappearance case had a major breakthrough. Han Kyu, who had taken Chae-jung away, had turned himself in. However, the strange thing was that Han Kyu only talked to Kang In, but when Kang In stood in front of him, Han Kyu didn't recognize him. It was only when Kang In introduced himself that Han Kyu said that Kang In looked very similar to the person in the photo. At first glance, it was obvious that Han Kyu was being manipulated by someone else. Someone showed the photo to Han Kyu, and that person told him to go find Kang In. Han Kyu opened his mouth and said something strange. Guzu said Kang In would not spare Han Kyu. He would use a knife to cut the flesh off Han Kyu's body and pour warm water on Han Kyu. If Han Kyu asked to spare his life, Kang In would spit on Han Kyu. Han Kyu's current state seemed unusual. It was unknown whether Han Kyu had taken drugs or been brainwashed. According to Han Kyu's testimony, on July 15, he kidnapped Chae-jung. The next day, Han Kyu strangled Chae-jung to death. After that, Han Kyu loaded the body into the car and drove it into the sea. This testimony was 80% false, because not long before, Chae-jung had contacted Se-ron, so Chae-jung could not have died on the second day of her disappearance. Furthermore, what was the reason Han Kyu killed Chae-jung? Where was the crime scene, and what were the tools used to commit the crime? Han Kyu did not explain these things clearly, but since Han Kyu said it out loud, it was obvious that some people would take it as the truth. Currently, Chae-jung's family is preparing for the funeral. At this time, Se-ron told Jung Hyun that about a month ago, Chae-jung had contacted them. She also mentioned the 1987 magazine. Jung Hyun was extremely angry when she heard that. Such an important thing, and she only knew now. Jung Hyun thought about it for a bit and realized that this funeral was organized a bit hastily. Chae-jung's body had not been found yet. Before Jun-seo died, he left a message saying that if Jung Hyun did not leave, Chae-jung would be in danger. It seemed that Jun-seo had known early on that something would happen to Chae-jung. Plus, the strange drawing in Han Kyu's house. A month ago, Chae-jung had contacted a classmate. No matter what, this matter was not simple at all. Jung Hyun had to investigate this matter clearly. At most, she would find Chae-ho to ask, but when Jung Hyun had just started investigating, she discovered something strange. The house Jun-seo had visited before was fake. The people there said they had lived in this area for more than 10 years, but they had never heard of anyone named Jun-seo living here. When Jung Hyun went inside to check, she realized that this was the same room she had been to the day before, but the furniture was not the same as before. Jung Hyun immediately called the landlord. That person thought that Jung Hyun was the person who had rented the house the last time. Then, Jung Hyun called Jun-seo's cousin, but Jung Hyun discovered that the phone number did not exist. Jung Hyun wanted to inform Kang In about this, but Kang In refused to answer the phone. Jung Hyun could only leave a message for Kang In that Se-ron had handed in a cassette tape. Jung Hyun wanted to hear the contents of the tape. However, Kang In had withdrawn from this case and did not want to interfere anymore. Even so, Kang In still could not completely let go. Kang In's wife suggested that when Kang In's health recovered, they would return to their hometown. Kang In had no objections. Kang In followed his wife's arrangement. Time continued to pass until 1999. Jung Hyun went to the abandoned school that year. There were these strange drawings on the outside wall. However, in just a few seconds of distraction, Jung Hyun was kidnapped by someone. When Jung Hyun woke up and opened her eyes, she found herself in another room. There were many candles around the room. A man and a woman walked in together. They held a kettle and poured water into Jung Hyun's mouth. After the two of them finished pouring a kettle, they left the room. The moment the door closed, the speaker on the wall emitted a strange sound. The sound was like a prayer, but it also sounded like some kind of curse spell. At the same time, Han Kyu changed into another set of clothes. Han Q was hooded, and he was taken from the prison to a strange room. An old man was already waiting there. The old man took off Han Q's headscarf. He then proceeded to measure Han Q's blood pressure, and then sat down across from him and asked what this strange symbol meant. Han Q replied that he didn't know. Kang In played the cassette tape and asked what was inside. Han Q still firmly said that he didn't know. Kang In asked about Guzu again, but Han Q continued to repeat the two words, "don't know." So Kang In could only hand Han Q over to the old man for punishment. As soon as Kang In stood up, Han Q let out a strange laugh. Han Q said, "Guzu once said that Kang In is dead, and the only person who can save Kang In is Kang In. Of course, this process will be very long." Before that, Han Q had said that Kang In would choke him, skin him, and pour boiling water on him. This is the process of self-rescue that Han Q mentioned earlier. Kang In stared at Han Q for a while. Then Kang In emptied the bullets from the gun. Kang In used the gun to hit Han Q's head a few times. Next, Kang In picked up a bullet and stabbed Han Q in the hand. On this side, Chaejun's classmates were grilling meat in the school. After the three of them finished eating the meat, they would go find the 1987 magazine, because Chaejung had mentioned that magazine. Soojeon and Junghyun were the ones who published it, so there must be an important clue in that magazine. The three girls used grilled meat and mixed noodles to bribe their seniors. Then, they successfully sneaked into the library's document room. Very quickly, they found the 1987 magazine. Inside the magazine was a photo of 5 people. The 3 girls only recognized Junghyun in that photo. At the same time, Junghyun woke up. A man with a long beard was standing at the door. His way of dressing looked very much like a priest. He mentioned Guzu. It seemed that Guzu was a god that he worshipped. Junghyun didn't care about Guzu. She just wanted to know Chaejun's whereabouts. The long beard suddenly changed the subject. He mentioned Junghyun's school days. There was a camera in the drawer. The long beard hoped that Junghyun could find back his lost memories. The development of the matter to this point was definitely not a coincidence. Junghyun was the beginning of everything. Junghyun looked at the camera in the long beard's hand. She also guessed the identity of this person. Junghyun couldn't believe what she was seeing, because this long beard reminded her of Junseo, and Junseo was dead. What the hell was going on? Over here, the superior came to give Kang In the documents. It turned out that Kang In's abuse of power had been approved by his superiors. His superiors agreed to help Kang In extend the time by 1 week. If after 1 week Kang In still had no results, the case would be handed over to another department to handle. Kang In immediately went to the supermarket, but he did not come here to buy things, but to find someone. This place was revealed by Han Q. Kang In pretended to be a fellow cultist to secretly observe the situation. There was also that strange symbol inside the room. The long-haired man was preparing to perform a ritual. Kang In said that he had performed the ritual before coming here. After that, Kang In quietly stood and observed the man. This ritual was a bit strange. It was impossible for an ordinary person to do it. It seemed that the standards for accepting followers of this cult were very high. There was a painting hanging on the wall. The person in the painting was the bearded man Junghyun had met. Could it be that Jung-seo was the founder of this cult? After the long-haired man finished the ritual, he took Kang In on the road. On the way, the long-haired man took out a candy to eat. The hallucinogen immediately controlled his mind. Then, the two went to the market where the election campaign was being held. Counselor Lim was also present there. The person who murdered Director Lee was him. It seemed that Counselor Lim was also a member of the cult. With his status, his position in the cult was certainly not low. Kang In was also no stranger to Counselor Lim, because he also had another identity. Counselor Lim was Kang In's father-in-law, but the relationship between the two was not good. Kang In wanted to learn about the cult through Counselor Lim, but he advised his son-in-law to stop, because this was not something Kang In could interfere with. On this side, Junghyun was still being tortured. Ever since the bearded man watched that video in 1987, he had been completely brainwashed. He had become Guzu's most loyal follower. There was a strange woman in that video, and there was also a woman here. Junghyun was taken to another room. The bearded man took out a photo taken that year and said that the terrorist attack that year was initiated by them. They were the 5 people chosen by the heavens. Junghyun was as if stimulated. The memories that had been forgotten gradually appeared in her mind. Junghyun and Chaeho had been to this place before. Chaeho seemed to understand that symbol very well. This made Junghyun feel very confused because she had discovered that symbol first. Chaeho had been missing for a long time and he had only recently returned, but he understood this better than Junghyun. That made her guess that the author of these drawings was Chaeho. Chaeho's words seemed to contain magical power. It seemed that Junghyun was hypnotized at that time. At the same time, Kang In carried a stack of documents back home. Kang In saw a package in the mailbox. He he opened it and found a videotape inside. When Kang In was about to watch the tape's contents, someone suddenly came. It was the nanny who came to take care of Kang In's dog. The appearance of the nanny made Kang In give up the idea of watching the tape. Kang In turned to read the documents, but then he accidentally discovered that the nanny was also a member of the cult. At this time, the nanny ran to Kang In crying and said that the dog was dead. But at this time, Kang In no longer had the mind to care about it. Kang In was still shocked by the nanny's identity. Kang In suddenly felt like he was being watched and betrayed. That made Kang In excited and wanted to see Guzu immediately. But Kang In did not know who Guzu was. Time moved to 1987. Junghyun sat in the classroom absent-mindedly while Cheho stood downstairs. After a while, Junghyun took out a box cutter. She asked the teacher if she could go to the infirmary. The teacher asked Junghyun where she felt uncomfortable. Junghyun then held out her bloody hand. But after Junghyun left the classroom, she did not go to the infirmary. Junghyun went to the broadcasting room. Then she put the cassette tape into the player. At exactly 8 o'clock, she pressed the play button. The eerie bell immediately rang, accompanied by a faint whistling sound. Cheho turned and left. He returned to the car. A woman was already sitting in the passenger seat. Cheho informed her that there was no more time. Everything had to proceed according to the plan. At present, Cheho was probably Guzu. He had returned from studying abroad. Relying on his top hypnosis ability, Cheho carried out a series of actions. Through this, he developed the evil cult he founded. It is possible that the strange woman in the video is the saintess of this evil cult. The woman sitting in Cheho's car was probably the first-generation saintess. Che Jung could be the second-generation saintess. What is Cheho's purpose after all? The basic purpose of most evil cults is money and possibly power and beauty. They also want to hold everything in their hands. They want to be worshipped as gods. However, Cheho is the type of person with an antisocial personality. In 1987, Cheho released toxic gas at the train station. After that, Cheho took the initiative to turn himself in. Cheho is currently in prison, so money, power, or beauty are meaningless to Cheho. This is completely different from what a cult founder can do. Perhaps Cheho did this to expand the influence of the cult. Cheho's goal has also been achieved. After the terrorist attack, countless relatives of the victims were brainwashed. They became loyal members of the cult. Back to Cheho's goal. He is not greedy for money or power, so he is not controlled by the mundane desires of humans. So what Cheho wants is definitely very scary. Cheho once mentioned doing experiments. If the purpose of the experiment is to test human nature to confirm his views, then that is understandable. I'm afraid that is not Cheho's ultimate goal. What he really wanted was a massacre to elevate himself to a new level. Another extremely important detail was that the woman in Cheho's car was Kang In's wife. The return to their hometown was a request made by Kang In's wife, and she was pregnant at the time. The time they returned to their hometown was 1985. The time the incident happened was 1987. During those 2 years, the child must have been born. However, this child has not appeared yet. Kang In's wife is related to Cheho. In 1987, Cheho brought Che Jung back, so perhaps she is Kang In's daughter. As for Kang In, he is still caught up in the vortex of this drama. It can be seen that this is a very large chess game that has been meticulously arranged. Although Kang In has discovered that the nanny is a member of the cult, he is in no hurry to expose her identity. Kang In secretly followed the nanny to the cult's base. Junghyun had been locked up here before. Kang In went deep inside to look for clues. Cheho discovered a group of believers praying. Some were kneeling and some were lying down. They were piled up like corpses. At this time, Kang In was observing carefully. Suddenly, a person appeared behind Kang In. Fortunately, Kang In reacted in time. He immediately turned around and fired. The gunshots startled the believers who were praying. Seeing this, Kang In quickly drove away, but Kang In's license plate was recorded. At the same time, Junghyun was taken back home. Her mother did not know what her daughter had gone through. The mother could only hug Junghyun and call her name. Kang In returned to report to his superiors. He felt that place was not the main base of the cult, because a few days ago, Kang In went inside and discovered that there was nothing inside. The last time Kang In attacked the Skull Gang, he also saw the cult symbol. Kang In suspected that the cult followers were performing some kind of ritual. Moreover, this ritual was mobile. The Skull Gang could give up territory to the cult. This proved that there was some kind of relationship between the two sides. Kang In decided to find an acquaintance to inquire about the situation. That acquaintance of Kang In's was named Daok Jin. He worked in the loan shark business with Jung Ta. Jung Ta was one of the people in the photo. His condition was similar to Junghyun's. He had absolutely no memory of what happened in 1987. Jung Ta and Junghyun had a love relationship. relationship. Because Jung Hyun was in the hospital, Jung Ta went to visit her. Jung Hyun's mother was also in the hospital room, so it was inconvenient for the two of them to talk. Jung Hyun had to pull Jung Ta out. She told him to take her to a place. On the way, Jung Hyun told Jung Ta that Jun Seo was not dead. The dead person they saw in the hospital was fake. The funeral was also fake. But Jung Hyun also did not know why Jun Seo had to fake her death. But Jung Hyun knew she had to do something because she had recalled some memories. The 1987 gas discharge incident was something Jung Hyun had told the group to participate in and carry out. The mission of the five of them was to place gas tanks at the train station, and all of this was ordered by Chae-ho. On this side, Kang-in went to meet Deok-jin. Previously, Deok-jin specialized in gas business, mainly delivering goods to the Skull Gang. The intermediary between the Skull Gang and the Japanese side was Professor Jang, but Deok-jin had only heard of the name and had never seen the real person. Deok-jin also did not know what Professor Jang looked like. Kang-in gave Deok-jin a mission, which was to investigate Professor John's identity. At the same time, Jung Hyun and Jung Ta went to a place. This place used to be a deer farm, but now it has been converted to a pig farm. The owner of this place said that when he first came here, the stench was extremely unpleasant. The previous owner originally intended to build a building here, but then he was imprisoned, so this place was abandoned. The deer naturally all starved to death. The stench was caused by the decomposing deer carcasses. On this side, Chae-ho once again showed his powerful abilities. A reporter wanted to interview Chae-ho, but the prison warden did not like to show off like that, so he refused on Chae-ho's behalf. Although Chae-ho said it was okay, his fingers kept tapping on the edge of his chair, which made the prison warden very uncomfortable. Chae-ho told the prison warden to look out the window, but the prison warden did not understand the meaning of his words. Suddenly, a black crow flew into the room. That scene scared the warden to death. After that, other crows also flew into the wall. At the same time, Jung Hyun got another clue. The reason the old owner wanted to build the building was because he wanted to move the welfare hospital here. But because of some problems with the procedures, the transfer of the welfare hospital had to be postponed. The name of that welfare hospital seemed to mean family. Jung Hyun was no stranger to this name because the place where she and Chae-ho grew up was that welfare hospital. In the evening, when the warden returned home, he found a package in the mailbox. The warden's wife was not home. She only left a note telling him to eat while the rice was still hot. The warden opened the package and found a cassette tape inside. He originally planned to listen to the tape while eating, but inside there were only bells and strange flutes. That sound made the warden feel annoyed. When he had just taken out the cassette tape, a series of noises suddenly came from the room. The warden carefully went over to check. It turned out that the items in the cupboard had fallen out, but the warden didn't pay much attention. He just picked them up and put them back in their original place. After the warden's wife returned home, she discovered that the food on the table was still intact. The cupboard in the room kept making noises as if something was locked inside. The warden's wife called her husband several times, but no one answered. This made her feel a little scared. The warden's wife mustered up her courage and walked to the cupboard. Her husband's voice rang out from inside. He told her to run away quickly. When the warden's wife knew that the person inside was her husband, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. But why didn't the warden come out? Was he planning to sleep in there tonight? The warden's wife opened the cupboard to take a look. The warden was no longer conscious. He mistook his wife for a ghost and killed her. This was another case caused by a cassette tape. After dawn, Kang-in was awakened by a knock on the door. The nanny woke Kang-in up to mourn the dog. Kang-in pretended to go in to change clothes. Then he secretly watched the nanny's actions. The nanny took away the cassette tape he received the day before. Kang-in knew it clearly, but he didn't say anything. He still went with the nanny to see the dog off. Later, Kang-in said that the dog was now dead, so the nanny didn't need to come here anymore. However, she said that she would come occasionally to bring food to Kang-in. Finally, Kang-in didn't hide it anymore. He said that he knew the nanny was a member of a cult who came to monitor him. The nanny's appearance was also very coincidental. It was right after Kang-in's wife had an accident. The nanny had known this day would come. In fact, she was also a relative of the victim of the 1987 gas explosion. The terrorist attack took her son's life, so the nanny's life suddenly lost direction. That period of time was really scary for her. The appearance of Guzu gave her hope, so the new nanny joined the cult. The nanny revealed a piece of information to Kang, in that the cassette tape was asked by the representative to be recovered. Currently, the cult is in chaos. Everyone is waiting for that person to return. Jung Hyun went to the river. He recalled the memories that had been lost after the 1987 gas explosion. Here, Chae-ho told Jung Hyun that the gas explosion was carried out by them together. Chae-ho was the mastermind, and Jung Hyun and her classmates were accomplices. Chae-ho erased the memories of Jung Hyun and her classmates. Something like this happened when they left the orphanage. At that time, Chae-ho erased Jung Hyun's memory. Not long after, the bodies of the warden and his wife were discovered. Kang In immediately went to look for the videotape but couldn't find it. Even the strange cassette tape didn't appear. However, this case was similar to the previous cases. First, the warden killed his family, then he ended his own life. The case of Kyung Jin and his mother was the same. Soo Chung and his wife also experienced the same thing. Kang In immediately went to the prison to find Chae-ho. Kang In also brought a psychology professor. They used the name of an interview to talk to Chae-ho. It seemed that this was Chae-ho's purpose. Meanwhile, Jung Hyun was still trying to find his memories of that year. After the gas discharge, Chae-ho erased Jung Hyun's memory. After that, Chae-ho revealed the truth to her again. Jung Hyun had the right to choose whether she wanted to erase her memories this time or not. If Jung Hyun chose to keep her memories, she would have to live in pain. So Jung Hyun chose to erase it. She chose to run away from reality. But the current Jung Hyun was different from before. She wanted to bravely face the truth. When Jung Hyun was kidnapped, the long-bearded man had warned her that she had to act according to Chae-ho's plan. Jung Hyun absolutely could not have the thought of betraying Chae-ho. In her heart, she always remembered Chae-jung. Jung Hyun even loudly called her niece's name several times. At that time, the girls standing in the hallway reacted because that person was the missing Chae-jung. In 1987, at the welfare home called One Family, the children not only had to suffer from hunger but also from the cold. Death was not uncommon here. From that moment on, Chae-ho decided to change everything. Time moved to 1999. Jung Hyun suddenly came to find Kang In. She felt that Chae-jung was not dead. Not long before, Jung Hyun was taken away by a cult. In the hallway of the building, she saw Chae-jung. Although the girl had a scarf covering her face, Jung Hyun could still feel that it was Chae-jung. Later, when Jung Hyun came out, the person with the scarf covering her face was gone. Jung Hyun thought about everything carefully and realized that Chae-jung probably went there voluntarily. However, Jung Hyun could not guess why his niece did that. This time, Jung Hyun did not come here to ask for Kang In's help, but she wanted to clearly state her determination to risk her life to find Chae-jung. If Jung Hyun was unlucky enough to meet an accident, there would still be people who knew that Chae-jung was still alive. Before leaving, Jung Hyun reminded Kang In that if he wanted to meet Chae-ho, he absolutely should not face her directly because Chae-ho was much scarier than they imagined. In fact, Jung Hyun felt very disgusted with the name Chae-ho because this name originally belonged to her father. After Jung Hyun's father passed away, her brother changed his name to Chae-ho. Kang In told Jung Hyun that in a few days he would visit Soo Chung and his wife, and if Jung Hyun was free, he could join. After all, she and Soo Chung's wife were also classmates. When Soo Chung and his wife had an accident, Jung Hyun was taken away. If Kang In hadn't told her today, she probably wouldn't have known that Soo Jung had an accident. On the way back, Jung Hyun coincidentally met Chae-jung's classmates. The three girls also didn't believe that Chae-jung was dead. They were always trying to post a notice looking for her. However, Chae-jung was Chae-ho's daughter, so she wasn't welcomed here. In fact, everyone just hoped that Chae-jung would die soon. No one was willing to help them find her. This made Jung Hyun feel very uncomfortable. She picked up a rock and went to the church. It was the rock that broke her glass door. Jung Hyun felt that the way people treated Chae-jung was unfair. The one who did wrong was Chae-ho, so the one who should suffer the consequences should be Chae-ho. But why do people have to take their anger out on innocent people? The pastor advised Jung Hyun to take care of herself because most of the people here were relatives of the victims of the toxic gas explosion. They had suffered too much. Jung Hyun was a relative of the perpetrator, so she should not blame the victims' relatives. If people could not live together in peace, the pastor could only issue a warning. He asked Jung Hyun to leave this place. However, Jung Hyun refused to leave. Actually, the reason she was so agitated was because everyone was indifferent to Chae-jung's disappearance. Not only did they not pray for Chae-jung, but they also cursed her. Jung Hyun volunteered to bear all the consequences, but she just hoped that everyone would not blame Chae-jung. They would not curse her. If possible, everyone would pray more for Chae-jung. Finally, Jung Hyun dragged her tired body back home. There was a girl waiting in the house. Jung Hyun thought that her niece had returned, but she heard Soo Jung's voice. She considered Jung Hyun to be the cause of the tragic situation that the couple encountered. If Jung Hyun had not chosen her at that time, Soo Jung would not have had to suffer the fate she had today. This time, she returned to take revenge. Suddenly, a rope was tied around Jung Hyun's neck. Her 2 feet left the ground. Her breathing became more and more difficult. At the moment when Jung Hyun was about to stop breathing, she suddenly woke up. It turned out that everything was just a dream. It wasn't Soo Jung who blamed Jung Hyun for everything, but she was the one who took all the blame upon herself. Jung Hyun adjusted her mood. Then she and Jung Ta set off to find clues. clues. This time, Deok Jin also went with them. The place they wanted to go this time was the place where Kang In had attacked. It was also the lair of the Skull Gang. This place was mentioned in the 1987 magazine. The group of 5 even took a photo together here. Junghyun and Jungta quickly found that symbol. Junghyun was currently pondering a problem. This place was privately owned land, and no one had given the group of 5 any clues. So how did they know about this place that year? There was only one possibility. Someone in the group of 5 had been here before. But who drew that symbol? Why did that person draw it here? Jungta suddenly had a bad feeling. He told Junghyun to leave this place quickly. Jungta went one step ahead, and Junghyun was one step slower than him. When she ran out, she saw someone lying in the hallway. When Junghyun was about to run there, she was ambushed from behind. Chae-ho is an extremely dangerous character. In prison, there are 2 unwritten rules. One is not to look directly at Chae-ho. The other is not to talk to Chae-ho. A new prison guard did not know that, so he accidentally looked directly at Chae-ho. Immediately, the prison guard had an illusion of being killed. That scene scared him so much that he trembled. In the end, Kang In still refused to listen to Junghyun's advice. Kang In chose to face Chae-ho. On this side, Junghyun was awake. The person who kidnapped her this time was Counselor Lim. He used Jungta's life to threaten Junghyun. He forced her to participate in his plan. Junghyun had no choice but to agree. Counselor Lim slipped her a business card. Actually, this wasn't the first time they had met. It was just that Junghyun didn't remember. Counselor Lim gave Junghyun a hint, which was that the welfare home was named after a family member. Right after that, Junghyun had another dream. In her dream, she saw the welfare home, her brother, the swimming pool, and even Counselor Lim there. A while later, Junghyun returned home. She asked her mother about the Poki welfare home and Counselor Lim. Junghyun had forgotten everything that happened while she was at the welfare home. Even if she met Counselor Lim, she wouldn't be able to recognize him. Junghyun's mother's expression was a bit strange. She advised her daughter not to think about the past anymore because some things were better if they were buried. This made Junghyun even more curious. She really wanted to know what she had experienced while she was at the welfare home. At this time, Junghyun's mother suddenly asked if Junghyun remembered Seohwa, the daughter of Counselor Lim. Of course, Junghyun did not remember, but the mother had a very deep impression of Seohwa. After she resigned from the welfare hospital, she had never seen Seohwa again, until a few days before the 1987 gas leak. Seohwa suddenly came here. At that time, Junghyun's mother and Seohwa met again. Chae-ho always took the initiative in the conversation. Chae-ho guessed what Kang In was most curious about, which was who Guzu was. However, Chae-ho refused to provide an answer and instead changed the topic of conversation to Kang In. Chae-ho knew a lot about Kang In, especially about Kang In's wife. She was also the daughter of Counselor Lim, Seohwa. Since Seohwa passed away, Kang In was immersed in grief. However, Kang In did not know the reason for that suffering. For example, why did Seohwa want to leave her husband? Why did she go to the train station at that time that day? Why did Seohwa go to Japan with Chae-ho after Kang In's daughter was born prematurely? At the same time, Junghyun's mother also expressed her doubts. That evening, Seohwa went to Junghyun's mother's shop. The feeling that Seohwa gave to others was strange. It seemed that Seohwa did not come to find Junghyun's mother, but she came to find Chae-jung. Therefore, Junghyun's mother thought that Chae-jung's mother was Seohwa. It seemed that Junghyun's mother and Chae-ho had had a discussion before. Together, they revealed clues about Seohwa. Kang In had completely lost his mind. If no one had stopped him, Kang In would have killed Chae-ho right there. On this side, Chae-jung was being held under house arrest. The person serving her was a boy of the same age. He treated Chae-jung very respectfully because Chae-jung was considered the successor and the young man was just a servant. The status of the two people was too different, but Chae-jung did not care about that. She just needed someone to talk to. The two of them promised each other that when no one was around, they would treat each other as friends. Outside, the voice of the long-bearded man rang out. Chae-jung hurriedly covered her head with a scarf. The long-bearded man asked the young man to go out because he had something to say to Chae-jung. Today, Chae-jung realized that she had failed again. This made Guzu very angry. If Chae-jung continued like this, the long-bearded man would not be able to keep his promise. That promise was not to harm Chae-jung's family. Chae-jung said that next time she would definitely succeed. She had said this many times before. The long-bearded man no longer believed that promise, but since Chae-jung was the successor, the bearded man still had to give her another chance. He couldn't hurt Chae-jung, but he could hurt her family. At the same time, Junghyun went to the hospital to visit Jungta. Chae-jung's classmates were also there. Jungta was helping to edit the cassette tape. Se-ron wanted to reverse the tape because Chae-jung had mentioned the 1987 magazine. However, the focus was not on the magazine's content, but on the last page. page, reverse the tape. Although no one knew who wrote the words, perhaps the clue that Chae-jung wanted to convey was here. Se-ron had previously handed the tape to the police, but she had made another backup copy. Jung-ta had finished assembling the cassette tape. When they were about to listen to the content inside, the three girls didn't have the player. Jung-hyun decided to take the tape home to listen to. After returning home, she saw that her mother was already asleep. Jung-hyun gently closed the door. Then she prepared to play the tape to listen. On this side, because of Kang-in's uncontrolled actions, the meeting with Chae-ho was forced to stop. The cameraman returned to edit the recording. At the same time, Chae-jung was taken to another place. If she still couldn't awaken this time, her family would be in danger. The cameraman stared at the screen for a while. His expression suddenly became strange. The cameraman went to the warehouse to get some things. Then he left. Jung-hyun was listening to the content inside the tape. After reversing it, the content inside turned into a normal conversation. Moreover, it was Chae-jung's voice. The content was roughly that Chae-jung was constantly followed by that woman. All of these things were related to school and Guzu. If Jung-hyun hadn't chosen to return, none of this would have happened to her niece. If Chae-jung had died, all the responsibility would have been on Jung-hyun. Right now, Chae-jung was very close to death. Meanwhile, Kang-in woke up from his nightmare. Kang-in heard people whispering outside, so he pulled up the curtains to see. The scene outside scared Kang-in to death. A group of people were standing in front of his house, but when Kang-in went out to check, he didn't see anyone. Could it be that what Kang-in saw just now was just an illusion? At the same time, the cameraman also had an illusion. First, he saw a demon outside the window. Then, he heard the sound of running water in the bathroom. The cameraman immediately went to the kitchen to get a knife. Immediately after that, the demon chased him here. After dawn, Kang-in went to his daughter's room. Kang-in hadn't entered this place for a long time because his wife had a miscarriage, so this room was empty. At this time, the landline phone rang, but Kang-in didn't pick up. It was very noisy outside. Many reporters were standing outside Kang-in's door. It turned out that someone had revealed Kang-in's dark history. The story of Kang-in using force during interrogation had been exposed. Kang-in had left scars on the suspect's body. Although Kang-in didn't admit it, public opinion didn't care about it. Therefore, the leader couldn't let Kang-in continue his work. On this side, Jung-hyun went to find Counselor Lim. She wanted to know the truth about how she and Chae-ho were able to survive and leave the welfare home that year. Counselor Lim told Jung-hyun not to mention the past anymore. She also shouldn't mention the 1987 magazine. Actually, Jung-hyun didn't want to mention those things either, but in order to find Chae-jung, Jung-hyun couldn't ignore those things. Counselor Lim agreed to help her find Chae-jung. This made Jung-hyun a little surprised. Wasn't he and the cult on the same side? It was true on the surface, but the truth was not necessarily so. At the same time, the police received a report about the cameraman's case. The scene situation was similar to the previous cases. First, the cameraman killed his relatives, then he ended his life. On this side, Counselor Lim told Jung-hyun that the cult followers wanted to do something big, but Counselor Lim could not reveal the details yet. He could only reveal one thing. That day was coming very soon. The events of 1987 were about to repeat themselves. Only those who had been purified were qualified to welcome the future. Counselor Lim took out a piece of paper, on which was that strange symbol. He wanted to do something that required Jung-hyun's help, and after that was successful, Counselor Lim would bring Chae-jung back. At the same time, Kang-in went to find the psychology professor. Kang-in felt that the content of the interview was problematic, but because of the use of force during the interrogation, the professor refused to meet Kang-in. She also refused to provide documents about the interview. If Kang-in wanted to get the documents, he should go to the police station to get them. Kang-in was helpless and could only leave, but Kang-in did not know that the professor had actually been hypnotized. Her appearance at this time was really scary. After that, the professor received a phone call. Then she brought the doctor to see Chae-ho. If the doctor was also hypnotized, perhaps this was part of Chae-ho's plot. The doctor was an expert in the field of psychiatry. I wonder if he could resist Chae-ho's hypnosis? Meanwhile, Kang-in went to the church. Kang-in also knew the pastor. After all, Kang-in was also one of the victim's relatives. Kang-in used to go to the church often, and sometimes he also stayed here. Kang-in happened to meet a little boy there. The boy was very pitiful. The boy was home, but couldn't go home because his parents watched a videotape. After watching it, they were like possessed by a demon. From then on, they spent all their time watching the videotape, so the boy lost the care of his parents. Kang-in went to the boy's house. The boy took out the videotape. Kang-in originally wanted to take it home to watch it, but the boy didn't agree. If his parents returned and couldn't find the videotape, they would run to the church and cause trouble, so Kang-in had no choice but to watch it there. Because Kang-in considered the danger of the videotape, he told the boy to stay away for a while. However, the content of the videotape wasn't scary. It looked looked like a commercial for the One Family welfare facility. While Kang In was watching intently, the boy's father returned home. The father didn't ask clearly about the situation, but he immediately swung his sickle to attack Kang In. The boy standing next to him kept explaining, but the father wouldn't listen. Kang In took that opportunity to fight back. Kang In continuously hit the boy's father's face. Kang In beat him more and more fiercely, even intending to kill someone. Fortunately, at the last moment, Kang In regained consciousness. Thanks to that, Kang In didn't make a big mistake. When Kang In was about to take the boy away, the boy's father suddenly opened his mouth and said that tomorrow is the end of the world. All people and things will disappear. On this side, Jung Hyun and Jung Ta continued on their way. There were still some secret places in the magazine that they hadn't visited yet. The two people not only wanted to find Chae Jung, but they also wanted to find the memories they had lost. This time, in addition to Daeok Jin, there was also an uninvited member in the car. It was Chae Jung's friend named Se Ron. Thanks to the lesson from last time, Jung Hyun did not dare to let Se Ron take risks. Therefore, Jung Hyun decided to leave Daeok Jin to watch over her. Meanwhile, Jung Hyun and Jung Ta went inside. There were also traces left by the cult. Jung Ta turned on the recorder. Jung Hyun looked at the candles in front of him. If burning candles was for worship, then how should the photo on the wall be explained? Why was a group photo of 5 people hung there? There were also some candles that looked very new, that proved that there were still people here before Jung Ta and Jung Hyun entered. The two people prepared to leave, but the door was locked. They were locked inside. The only exit now was the window. Jung Ta's spirit suddenly became abnormal. Jung Ta used a candle to burn the tablecloth. Jung Hyun was extremely scared when she saw that, but before she could think about what was going on, Jung Ta broke the glass door and told her to get out first. However, after Jung Hyun got out, Jung Ta refused to leave because Jung Ta could see that woman. In Jung Ta's eyes, Jung Hyun had also turned into a different person. Jung Ta was afraid that he would kill Jung Hyun, so he did not climb up the window. Jung Ta told Jung Hyun absolutely not to climb down. Jung Ta could no longer control herself. If Jung Hyun jumped down, Jung Ta would definitely kill her. Jung Hyun did not know what had happened, but now she did not know what to do. While she was still a little conscious, Jung Ta quickly expressed her feelings to Jung Hyun. Actually, Jung Ta never resented her. After Jung Ta heard that she had returned, he felt very happy. Jung Ta had said what was hidden in his heart, so now he had no regrets. Under Jung Hyun's witness, Jung Ta turned around and rushed into the sea of fire. When Jung Hyun was about to jump down, Se Ron stopped her in time. At the same time, Chae Ho began to tell the story of what happened in 1987. After the gas leak, wore a gas mask and stood in the crowd. When Chae Ho looked at the panicked appearance of the victims, anger suddenly overwhelmed him. Chae Ho immediately went to Kang In's house because he felt that only killing Kang In could appease this anger. When Chae Ho arrived at Kang In's house, he always felt that the house was like a giant coffin. Chae Ho put on a gas mask and put on his shoes. Chae Ho slowly walked to Kang In's room. The door was unlocked and Kang In was still sleeping soundly. The strong smell of alcohol filled the room. Kang In didn't even bother to take off his coat. Perhaps Kang In had drunk a lot last night. Chae Ho's anger increased even more. Chae Ho wished he could kill Kang In immediately. However, at the moment Chae Ho was about to do it, he suddenly changed his mind. Chae Ho felt that he couldn't kill Kang In because he was too pitiful. So why was Kang In pitiful? Because in that moment, Chae Ho had an epiphany. Chae Ho saw the entire process from beginning to end of everything. Chae Ho suddenly felt that humanity was so small, while he himself was so great. After the doctor heard Chae Ho's words, it seemed that he was also hypnotized. Both of his hands had red circles. Many ants crawled out from inside his shirt. The professor sitting next to him looked very excited. When Chae Ho drew the symbol on the glass, the professor took the doctor away. The doctor was completely dazed. He felt like this trip had helped him to be reborn, so the doctor was very grateful to the professor. At night, Kang In received a phone call from his superior. Kang In immediately went to a place. The long-bearded Jun Seo also received a phone call. The caller informed him that everything was ready and could begin. Chae Jung sat right next to Jun Seo. The person on the other end of the line informed Chae Jung that Jung Ta had died on the spot, but Jung Hyun had escaped outside. The person on the other end of the line was Min Ra. She was also a follower of the cult. Kang In would arrive in a moment, and when he arrived, Min Ra would begin. What happened in 1987 was about to repeat itself. On a rainy day in 1987, Chae Ho gave Jung Hyun a cassette tape. She was asked to play the tape for her classmates who had seen it. Then, Jung Hyun was hypnotized by a brother. She followed the instructions and went into the broadcasting room. Then, she played the cassette tape on the loudspeaker. In the evening, Jung Hyun's group made an appointment to meet at the reservoir. Because Sujan was sick, she could not attend attend. They gathered there to see something strange. A female ghost was emerging from the reservoir. The other 3 people could see the female ghost, but only Jung-hyun could not see anything. The group of friends panicked and ran away. At that time, Min-ra tripped and fell, but no one stopped to wait for her. The female ghost slowly approached Min-ra. She was scared and did not dare to move. At this time, Chae-ho appeared and the female ghost also disappeared. From that moment, Min-ra officially became a member of the cult. Today, Min-ra was determined to kill her mother because she believed that death was reincarnation, but Min-ra could not do it. On this side, Kang-in went to the water treatment plant, but he was not careful and was attacked by someone else. When Kang-in woke up, he found Min-ra standing right in front of him. At this time, he understood that she was Chae-ho's person. Min-ra had completely lost her mind. In her heart, Chae-ho was like a god. At this time, that god called. He was sitting in the warden's room. Meanwhile, the warden stood next to him, like a subordinate of Chae-ho. This showed that Chae-ho's ability was really strong. Kang-in had guessed his motive. It was all for the family welfare facility. Everyone clearly knew what had happened to the welfare facility, but they chose to ignore it together. Therefore, Chae-ho wanted to punish those heartless people. The 1987 gas discharge was the first time. Tonight is the second time. When night falls, the 1987 massacre will be repeated. The believers have finished preparing. They are waiting for the final instructions. Those who have watched the video will gather here. After that, they will start a new life according to Guzu's wishes. Min-ra is the most important link because she holds the key to reincarnation. Everyone is walking towards the water treatment plant. Counselor Lim has also been waiting for a long time. Meanwhile, Min-ra is choosing a cassette tape. Kang-in secretly untied the rope to untie her. When Min-ra was not paying attention, Kang-in hugged her and jumped into the lake. Min-ra is not someone who can be easily controlled. She stabbed Kang-in without hesitation. Then she crawled to the shore. Kang-in also climbed up immediately. Min-ra madly vented the anger in her heart, and Kang-in had no ability to resist. When Min-ra left, he could only lie there watching her. Min-ra put the cassette tape into the player and pulled out a gun. At this moment, Jung-hyun suddenly appeared. She could not understand her friend's actions. She could not resent Min-ra either, because that year they abandoned Min-ra to run away. She became the person she is now. However, Min-ra did not think so. She was very grateful that they abandoned her that time. Thanks to that, she had the opportunity to meet the noble person of her life. Min-ra's family situation was not good. Her mother was sick and had no money to pay the hospital bill. At that time, Chae-ho took the initiative to help Min-ra. He gave her a chance to live a new life. When Min-ra went to the train station to release the toxic gas, she did not think much. Min-ra only thought that no matter how many people she killed, she had to save her mother. When the appointed time came, Min-ra immediately played the cassette tape. Jung-hyun rushed over but was no match for Min-ra. When the bells and whistles rang, Min-ra was like a lost soul. She closed the door and picked up the phone. Min-ra told the person who was watching next to her mother. She asked this person to help send her mother off on her final journey. After Min-ra hung up, she ended her own life. She just wanted to reunite with her mother in another world. At the same time, Kang-in was also unfortunately hypnotized. Kang-in saw the female ghost. Kang-in hurriedly told Jung-hyun to quickly take out the tape, otherwise something big would happen. However, Noonan tried everything, but the sound still did not stop. Everyone had lost consciousness. Counselor Lim also led people in. Kang-in picked up the iron pipe and prepared to smash the machine, but this method was still ineffective because the machine was too sturdy. Everyone started to jump into the lake. Kang-in didn't know how many times he hit the machine. Finally, Kang-in broke the machine. The moment the sound stopped, the person in the lake struggled to rise to the surface. Everyone gradually regained consciousness. They couldn't believe what was happening before their eyes. However, that didn't mean the tragedy was over. Counselor Lim started releasing poison gas. The person he brought also entered the crowd. They started releasing poison gas everywhere. The crowd suddenly became chaotic and continuously fell down. Counselor Lim came to find Jung-hyun and Kang-in. He came to save the two of them. Kang-in's sleep lasted for 7 days. The incident at the water treatment plant was widely reported by the media. The cult followers end their life. A total of more than 100 people were harmed. Chae-ho's goal was achieved. However, Chae-jung still hasn't returned. Currently, she is still being held by Jun-so. Chae-jung had suffered enough, and now she really wanted to escape. The waiter was her only hope. Kang-in was completing the discharge procedures, but before he could leave the door, the procuratorate came to find him. At the same time, 2 very big events happened. Thanks to the help of the other boy, Chae-jung successfully escaped, but Chae-ho also escaped from prison. The goal of the procuratorate and Kang-in was the same. They did not know about Chae-jung's situation. They only knew about Chae-ho's story. When Kang-in received the news that Chae-ho had escaped from prison, prison, he suddenly felt tired and depressed. In fact, the prosecutor was not a good person. He received a commission from Counselor Lim. Their purpose was to deceive Kang In, but Kang In was not stupid. Kang In had realized some loopholes. Now the cult had announced to outsiders that Jun So was the leader of the cult, so why did the police keep paying attention to Cheho? Counselor Lim definitely wanted to borrow Kang In's hand to get rid of Cheho. However, how did Cheho escape from prison? For a master hypnotist, escaping from prison was really too simple. Cheho only needed to hypnotize a nurse. Cheho made the nurse clear the way for him. Cheho basically didn't need to do anything. At this time, Kang In left the procuratory. Hallucinations appeared before Kang In's eyes. Fortunately, Kang In's will was strong enough so nothing happened. Cheho had escaped from the prison's medical room. There were a total of 6 victims, one of whom was not dead. Kang In wanted to go see the lucky escapee. Kang In's hallucinations became more and more serious. If Kang In didn't quickly resolve this matter, he would soon be hypnotized. Finally, Chejung escaped. Now the girl only has one last way left, which is to leave this place through the back door of the kitchen. As a precaution, Chejung took a knife as a weapon to defend herself. The boy led her to the door, but it was very dark inside. Chejung mustered up her courage to step inside, but unexpectedly, the boy immediately locked the door. There was only a faint light in the room. There was someone watching the video. When Chejung approached, she realized that the person watching the video was Jun So. He was very angry because Chejung had betrayed the church. However, Chejung said that it was Jun So who broke their promise. The two had promised each other that as long as Chejung stayed here, Jun So would not harm Jung Hyun. But Jung Hyun was constantly in danger. Chejung could not ignore this situation. At this time, Jun So had no other choice. Jun So did not want to harm Jung Hyun, but she kept causing trouble. Jun So had to work very hard to stop his intention to kill Jung Hyun. Chejung began to compromise. If Jung Hyun was in danger again, even if Chejung died, she had to leave. Jun So couldn't hide his panic when he heard that. He knew that Chejung was the successor. She was the most important link in the whole plan. Even if Jun So had to die, he wouldn't let Chejung die. So, Jun So immediately promised Chejung that he would absolutely not harm Jung Hyun. At the same time, Kang In met the lucky survivor. That person had been waiting for Kang In for a long time. Cheho spared his life because Cheho wanted the survivor to pass on a message. Cheho said that he would wait for Kang In at the place where his daughter was born. This sentence proved that Chejung was indeed Cheho's daughter. Kang In and Jung Hyun discussed it with each other. They couldn't let Cheho control them like that. First, the two of them had to focus their efforts on finding Chejung. Chejung was now having to continue living her days under house arrest. However, she did not blame the boy because Chejung knew that the boy had no choice but to do so. The boy could only stand outside the door and cry. On this side, Chejung went to find Counselor Lim. According to what Counselor Lim said, the incident at the water treatment plant was just the beginning. There were still more exciting things behind. Cheho had escaped from prison, and the day of purification was about to take place. Chejung would definitely become a sacrifice. Jung Hyun could not understand Counselor Lim's purpose. Logically, Counselor Lim was also a member of the cult, so why would he approach Jung Hyun? There was only one possibility. Counselor Lim wanted to use her to get rid of Cheho. Counselor Lim laughed and said that Jung Hyun's vision was too narrow. Because Counselor Lim knew that Jung Hyun wanted to save his niece, he had a way to help Jung Hyun do that. But this way required a price. It would put Jung Hyun in danger. In order to save his niece, Jung Hyun volunteered to take the risk. Outside, when it was raining, Chejung watched carefully. Suddenly, a white smoke seeped through the crack in the door into the room. Chejung quickly fell to the ground. When she woke up, she had been transferred from house arrest to solitary confinement. At that time, an old man with white hair received the videotape. He watched the entire content of the tape. It turned out that Cheho was the last person to appear in the tape. No wonder, everyone who watched the tape became abnormal. Kang In went to Jung Hyun's house to find her, but she was not there. She left Kang In a letter with an address in it. Kang In could find Chejung there. Kang In received the information and immediately set off. The address in the letter was the white-haired old man's house. He and Kang In were considered old acquaintances. They had used force together to interrogate Han Q. However, this old man was also a cult member. Moreover, he had seen the videotape. Meanwhile, Cheho went to the beach. Here, Cheho met a fishing enthusiast. The two drank tea and chatted together. The fisherman had another child when he was old, but he never mentioned his previous children. Of course, Cheho came to him with a purpose. It turned out that this fisherman was Cheho's biological father. That year, because this father was short of money, he sold Cheho and Jung Hyun to a welfare home. Cheho picked up the lighter, and the father was immediately hypnotized by him. At the same time, Kang In had found Chejung's location. This white-haired old man loves reading. His house is full of books. However, there are no books books on the bookshelf right now, so there is only one possibility. The old man needs to move the bookshelf. If he puts the books on it, it will be difficult to move the bookshelf. That proves that Chae-jung is hidden right behind the bookshelf. But even so, the old man still refuses to let go of the person. The two immediately fight. Kang-in suddenly remembers a forgotten memory. That memory that he doesn't want to look back makes Kang-in very miserable. Kang-in doesn't kill the old man, he just breaks his hand, because Kang-in is worried that when the old man loses his self-control, he will use his hands to harm others. On this side, Counselor Lim storms into the cult headquarters. He brings back his missing successor. It turns out that this is his plan to save people. Counselor Lim let Jung-hyun replace his niece. Kang-in saved Chae-jung and brought her back home. The lost memories gradually became clearer. That year, after the incident at the welfare home, the superiors wanted Chae-ho to take responsibility. Kang-in followed his seniors to the interrogation. Chae-ho was hung upside down from the ceiling. He suffered all kinds of inhumane torture. So the video showed a woman hanging upside down. The white-clothed female ghost that kept appearing was Seo-hwa. Therefore, from beginning to end, the only thing Chae-ho wanted to do was revenge. In 1985, Kang-in and his seniors went to interrogate the prisoner. The prisoner was hung upside down from the ceiling. The interrogation process was very brutal. When Kang-in was about to leave, the prisoner asked for water. Because Kang-in couldn't bear it, he fulfilled the other party's wish. The prisoner told Kang-in to remember his name. His name was Chae-ho. Later, during the meal, Kang-in pulled down his pants in front of his seniors. Kang-in paid for all the alcohol in the restaurant. Now, Kang-in can do anything, but Kang-in will never do anything to force a confession. However, the price for this refusal is being fired. Kang-in left immediately. The time of the accident in 1985 was also that night. Finally, Kang-in was able to save Chae-jung. According to what she told, Jung-hyun and her mother did not want to return to her hometown. It was only because Chae-jung insisted on moving back to her hometown that Jung-hyun and her mother agreed. The reason Chae-jung wanted to return to her hometown was because of Chae-ho. Chae-ho told Chae-jung that there were things in her hometown related to her mother. Chae-jung was very curious about her late mother, so she defied everything to return to her hometown. It was for this reason that a series of scary things happened. Meanwhile, Chae-jung's classmates were waiting for her to return. Kang-in took Chae-jung there. The four friends happily hugged each other. Chae-jung was able to return thanks to Jung-hyun's sacrifice. Jung-hyun volunteered to become the successor in place of his niece. Taking this opportunity, Jung-hyun wanted to wake Jun-seo. However, the person Jun-seo wanted was not Jung-hyun. He only wanted Chae-jung. Jung-hyun's appearance made Jun-seo very uncomfortable. When Jun-seo strangled Jung-hyun, Chae-ho's voice suddenly appeared in his head. Take your bag and go to the train station to wait for Jung-hyun's instructions. Jun-seo was startled and let go of his hand and stepped back. Jun-seo's inner thoughts became extremely complicated. Meanwhile, Chae-ho was looking for his biological father. He is a really cruel fa. In the past, he had locked Chae-ho and Jung-hyun in a dark room all day long. During those dark days of his life, Chae-ho lost the concept of time, but at the same time, Chae-ho also practiced his superb skills. There was one thing that Chae-ho still remembered very clearly. After Chae-ho and her sister were locked up for several days in a row, the drunken father staggered open the door. When he saw that the two children were still alive, he said a cruel sentence. Why are these bastards so resilient? After many years of separation, the father had to pay the price for his previous evil actions. Chae-ho got a truck. At the same time, to ensure safety, Kang-in brought all four children home. In the house, there was a photo of Kang-in and his wife. Chae-jung was Seo-hwa's daughter. After that, Kang-in went out to receive intelligence. Professor Jang of the Skull Gang was Counselor Lim. Kang-in was not surprised at all, because he had already guessed this. Deok-jin was Jung-ta's junior. Because Jung-ta was dead, Deok-jin wanted revenge. That night, Kang-in had a dream. He dreamed of the beautiful time he and his wife had. But right after that, Seo-hwa turned into a female ghost. The nightmare scared Kang-in awake. Chae-jung came to find Kang-in to talk. The relationship between the two was a bit awkward. Chae-jung was Kang-in's wife's daughter. Nominally, she was Chae-ho's daughter, but her true identity was still uncertain, because Kang-in also did not witness his wife's miscarriage. With his own eyes, Chae-jung seemed to know something. She said that Seo-hwa leaving must have had a reason. It was just that she had no way to express it in words. Moreover, Kang-in was also a relative that Seo-hwa loved. On this side, Jung-hyun was taken to the practice room. There was a rope in the room. Every night, someone would hang upside down here. Jung-hyun felt that this was not practice but torture. She burned the rope. This action attracted the attention of the believers. Jun-seo advised Jung-hyun not to make a fuss anymore, because burning the rope would have no effect. He could still replace it with a new one. Jung-hyun walked towards the rope. She used her hand to grab the burning rope. She tried to endure the pain, and pulled the rope off. Jung Hyun's intention was very clear. It was not an ordinary rope that would never break. At the same time, Deok Jin came to find the counselor with the intention of revenge. Counselor Lim was a very sinister person. He told Deok Jin that Deok Jin had found the wrong target to take revenge on. The enemy of your enemy is your friend. If Deok Jin really wanted revenge, Counselor Lim could take him to the cult leader's room. Not long after, Chae-ho arrived. At the place where Jung-ta died, Chae-ho then started using the camera to take pictures. The location was the kindergarten where Seo-hwa used to study. Kang Yin had also been there. Chae-ho approached the wall and used paint to draw strange symbols on it. At this time, Chae-jung's group encountered a problem. The words written on the 1987 magazine, as well as the message that Se-ron received, were not left by Chae-jung. Someone had impersonated her to deceive everyone. Chae-jung wanted to go to the places mentioned in the magazine to check. Maybe she would discover something. At the same time, Jung-hyun's mother received the videotape. It seemed that her death was not far away. Kang In and Chae-jung went to those places because Jung-hyun used his life to save his niece. Now Chae-jung also wants to find a way to save her aunt. Even though Jung-hyun was in the cult brainwashing the followers, she was not chased away. Perhaps from the beginning, the person the cult wanted was Jung-hyun, not Chae-jung. On this side, Kang In and Chae-jo also went to the place where Jung-ta died. Kang In looked blankly at the scene before him. This place contained memories of him and his wife. The two saw the words Chae-ho left behind. Kang In suddenly became tense because he discovered a problem. The 7 places in the magazine were all closely related to Kang In. These were all places that contained memories of him and his wife. In particular, this place was also where Kang In proposed to his wife. At the same time, Chae-ho returned home. His adoptive mother was sitting watching the tape. Chae-ho was a bit surprised to see that. The content of the tape was filmed by Chae-ho himself. The girl in white was Seo-hwa. The posture of crossing her arms over her face was not a ritual. It was just an action when Seo-hwa wiped her tears. The foster mother knew that Chae-ho was avenging his foster father. On the day his foster father passed away, he once said, "Our family will die together." At that time, the foster mother held Chae-ho and Jung-hyun's hands. She questioned her husband why he said such words. The husband replied that family members should naturally die together. The foster mother immediately became angry and told her husband that if he wanted to die, he should die alone and not involve his family. Therefore, the mother also had a part in the father's death. Chae-ho shed tears of pain. He told his foster mother to run away quickly, but his foster mother kept apologizing. Then, she was attracted by the videotape. Chae-ho's voice came from the tape. Chae-ho said that anyone who had seen this tape would die in pain after killing the person they loved. The mother stabbed Chae-ho with a knife, but Chae-ho used his hand to block the knife. When Chae-ho reached the door, Counselor Lim was already waiting to welcome him back. Chae-ho knew that the tape was sent by Counselor Lim to his adoptive mother, but he refused to admit it. Counselor Lim was very arrogant in front of others, but in front of Chae-ho, he was obedient and very obedient, because Counselor Lim was the person Chae-ho wanted to kill the most. That year, Chae-ho forced him to confess. Seo-hwa also wanted the same, so in a fit of anger, Counselor Lim killed his own daughter. He also begged Chae-ho to help him erase that painful memory. The reason Chae-ho didn't kill Counselor Lim was because Chae-ho wanted to witness his end. Counselor Lim's end would be worse than death. When Chae-jung returned home, she received news that her grandmother had passed away. Chae-jung's heart was filled with pain. She wished that her grandmother would be her daughter in the next life so that she could love, pamper, and repay her. Well, at Chae-jung's grandmother's funeral, Counselor Lim suddenly appeared. At the same time, there was a problem on the cult's side. Because of Jung-hyun's brainwashing, Jun-seo was forced to find a way to stabilize the believers. Jun-seo had to make everyone continue to believe in Guzu. Kang In went to Chae-jung's grandmother's funeral. He didn't bother to save any face for his father-in-law. Counselor Lim wasn't angry at all. He even said that Guzu was waiting for Kang In. If Kang In didn't go, Jung-hyun wouldn't live through today. At this time, Jung-hyun started to win people's hearts again, and someone was convinced by her. Jun-seo couldn't hide her anxiety, but Jun-seo wasn't as good at persuasion as her. Jung-hyun drank the poisoned wine. She wanted to use her death to awaken the believers. At this time, Counselor Lim proposed a solution, which was to let Chae-jung go save Jung-hyun. Kang In would go meet Guzu. That way, both sides could achieve their goals. Kang In did not want Chae-jung to take the risk, but she insisted on saving Jung-hyun because Chae-jung knew clearly that Kang In could not guarantee Jung-hyun's safety. The two made an appointment to have dinner together after finishing the matter. Afterwards, Chae-jung set off with Counselor Lim. On this side, Jung-hyun's actions had taken effect. The believers began to have the idea of continuing to live. They did not want to die with Guzu. Jun-seo could only vent his anger madly. At this time, Counselor Lim's men rushed in, each carrying a suitcase. It seemed that this time the believers would have a hard time escaping death. Kang In returned to his home. Guzu was waiting for him here. Cheho was Guzu, and this was not beyond expectations. The two sat across from each other. Kang In proposed a solution. Cheho will return to prison, and Kang In will die. That way, Cheho can complete his revenge without having to sacrifice the lives of innocent people. Unfortunately, this is not the outcome Cheho wanted. If Cheho wanted to kill Kang In, he could have done it a long time ago. Why did he have to wait until now? That year after the gas leak, Cheho went to Kang In's house. At first, Cheho came with the intention of killing Kang In, but Cheho discovered an item in the kitchen. It was a letter that Sohwa had left behind. Inside were many things that Kang In did not know. Kang In almost lost his mind. He was completely unaware of the existence of this letter. When Cheho took out a gun, he asked Kang In to read the entire letter. At the same time, the gun would also be given to Kang In. This was not disadvantageous to Kang In, so he had no reason to refuse. At the same time, Counselor Lim took Chaejung to a monastery. This was not where Junghyun was. Chaejung was tricked by Counselor Lim. He wanted to turn this place into a sanatorium. He wanted to contribute something to society in exchange for fame. To do this, Counselor Lim needed to eradicate the cult. Chaejung and Junghyun were Guzu's relatives. Of course, they had to sacrifice themselves. On this side, Kang In opened the letter with trembling hands. The content of the letter was very short, but it was enough to make people surprised. Sohwa did not miscarry. She had taken her child to Japan to take refuge, but she still could not escape Cheho's hands. Therefore, Sohwa chose another way to protect her child, which was to tie Cheho and the child together. It turned out that Chaejung was really Kang In's child. Kang In is the son-in-law of Counselor Lim, so Chaejung is his granddaughter. Counselor Lim once killed his own daughter. Now, he wants to kill his granddaughter. Could this be the miserable ending that Cheho wants to see? Kang In has completely lost his mind. He hates not being able to kill Cheho immediately, but Cheho does not resist. He only has one request. That is, Kang In waits for Cheho to finish speaking before making a decision. Kang In has seen the video recording. Anyone who has seen it will kill their loved ones and end their own lives. Before, Kang In had no loved ones, but now everything has changed. Chaejung is the person Kang In loves. Now Kang In only has two choices. One is that Kang In will kill Chaejung and end his own life. The other is that Kang In will end his own life right here. Not knowing what magic Cheho's words had, Kang In suddenly had a serious hallucination. At the same time, Counselor Lim heard gunshots. He immediately told his subordinates to check the situation. Chaejung knew that Junghyun was right upstairs. Although she was extremely angry, she couldn't do anything. On this side, Kang In had regained his sanity, but he couldn't kill Chaejung. Therefore, he chose to end his own life. But Kang In didn't have the courage. Therefore, Kang In had no choice but to choose the third option. That was to let Cheho erase his memories of his daughter. Cheho took out his camera to record this scene. Unexpectedly, Kang In suddenly shot Cheho in the thigh. Although Cheho was a little surprised, he wasn't scared because Kang In couldn't kill Cheho. Because once Cheho died, Kang In would forever be immersed in hallucinations. Kang In would never be able to see his daughter again in this life. However, Cheho underestimated Kang In's will. Kang In had wanted to die for a long time. Before he died, Kang In knew that his daughter was still alive. For Kang In, this was not suffering, but liberation. Kang In shot and killed Cheho. Then he called the police. Kang In also admitted that he had killed someone. After that, Kang In immediately called Counselor Lim. Counselor Lim had to wait a long time. He quickly put the phone to Chaejung's ear. Both of them knew each other's identity, but neither of them exposed it. Counselor Lim took back the phone. He originally thought that the person on the other end was Guzu, but he didn't expect it to be Kang In. After Guzu died, Counselor Lim's memory gradually recovered. Kang In didn't say much to him. Kang In just said, "See you in hell," and hung up. Counselor Lim was very scared after hearing it. When he turned around, Junghyun was already there. It turned out that the gunshots just now came from Deokjin. Deokjin had finished off Counselor Lim's men. Deokjin then killed Junso to avenge Jungta. Counselor Lim was panicking, not understanding what had happened. The memory of killing his own daughter gradually appeared clearly. Counselor Lim couldn't believe this was real. He hurriedly threw the lighter out, wanting to end it all. Junghyun pulled Chaejung away. Counselor Lim's memories became clearer and clearer. His daughter was killed by him. Now it was Counselor Lim's turn to face the consequences. At the same time, Cheho was not completely dead. In the last moment of his life, he was immersed in old memories. It turned out that Cheho did not kill his adoptive mother, but she herself harmed herself. In sat in the house waiting for the police to arrive. Time moved to 6 months later. Chaejung and Junghyun are both safe and sound. Meanwhile, Kang In is in prison. Kang In doesn't dare to see his daughter. He can only listen to Junghyun talk about her recent situation. Junghyun doesn't believe that the video is so scary. She hopes Kang In can agree to meet her daughter, but Kang In doesn't have the courage to do so. Kang In Yin's hallucinations are getting worse and worse. Every night, Kang Yin can see a group of people lying next to him. They urge Kang Yin to kill his daughter. If Kang Yin doesn't meet Chai Zhou, he can still persevere. But once Kang Yin meets his daughter, he's afraid he'll hurt her. So Kang Yin should maintain this state for now. Kang Yin lives in prison, while Jung Hyun stays outside to take care of Chai Zhou. Today's movie ends here. See you again in the next videos.